Hello and welcome to Retech, and today we're just going to do a review of the last month's videos. This is a quick catch-up. If you haven't seen all of the videos that have been put out in the last month, then this is kind of a shortcut version, just so you know what's out there, and you can go and choose them if you want. We're also going to cover a few other up-and-coming events as well. So let's dig in and see what we've done in the last month. So last month has been quite a busy old month. I don't know if you can see this on the reflections, but there's quite a few videos which have been done in the last sort of 4 weeks, and basically they started on the Amiga 500 or the 500 Mini, and I did have my reservations about that machine. I still do. I also still think that it is possibly a little bit overpriced, and it was not very well thought out on its launch date, but since then there have been a number of updates to try and fix that problem, which has been good, and it's kind of making it into a slightly better machine. Now, whether or not it's going to suit you, being a mini or not, well, that's up to you. Then that's the whole point of these reviews that I've done on this machine, to give you both sides of the coin. Okay, there's a lot of reviews out there which are very kind of nice about the machine, have kind of overlooked its shortcomings, and have kind of just gone down the it's nice to have something a bit more retro, which is fine, that's where you're coming from. That's brilliant, but I reviewed it as a new product rather than something that you might have wanted 30 years ago. So that's the one of the first videos we did this earlier in this month, and then we moved on to the Dragon 32. So 40 years on of the Dragon 32. Now, slightly before that I did a little bit of a departure into video cameras. The reason for that is because I do get a lot of questions asked about, is it worth going for the high-end video camera in comparison to maybe one a few years old? Well, if you watch that video, my opinion is there's a lot of useful older cameras out there that for the everyday kind of snapshot taker and somebody starting out into the video camera world rather than the smartphone, there are more than the brand new all singing all dancing options which will actually do what you need them to do, and that was what that video was all about. Even broadcast companies don't put out a lot of content in 4K, because when they do, it's not quite 4K anyway, because it's compressed, because it's got to be able to be streamed, and you've got to think of the bandwidth of the average broadband connection, and it's got to be able to cope with it. So most broadcast companies broadcast in 1080i or standard definition. So at the end of the day, it's not all about megapixels. So to come back to my point originally is, when does technology cross the line? When does it become vintage? And when does it stop being useful? So if you kind of want to have a look at some of the older cameras that you can link to older PCs, etc., then go down that route and have a quick look at that video as well. Then we moved on to the Dragon 32, the Ubiquitous Dragon 32, which became the start of my 40 years on serial. And there's quite a number of those machines still to cover, because 1982 was a busy year in the micro industry. Now, the Dragon was the underdog of the mainstream computers, especially in the UK, and it was kind of seen as a colour computer copy, although strictly it wasn't, because they both used the same spec sheet and the same basic design that the Motorola company put out for people to kind of start designing stuff around their CPU. But the Dragon 32 wasn't an overall bad machine. It had its good points, and it's one of those machines that if you haven't seen one before, or you haven't really used one, or don't know much about, click on the Dragon 32 video and have a look at it, and then also have a look at an earlier one I did a few years ago. The quality isn't brilliant, but it gives you a more kind of in-depth background into the company itself, and you may decide that you might want one. And I've also got a few up and coming videos about the Dragon 32 and its repairs coming up as well, so you know that if you're interested in the Dragon 32, there's more to come. Now, one of my favourite bits of the last month was actually going to the original Acorn building, the original building where Acorn Computers basically founded the BBC Micro and the Acorn Atom. Now, this is in an affluent part of Cambridge, and it's really near a very busy marketplace, and to look around you wouldn't think that this scruffy place was the birthplace of ARM and Acorn, and as you can see, the whole demeanour of the place is run down, and I wasn't quite sure whether or not the staircase was going to last that much longer. And climbing the stairs, you can see how bad the condition of the building is, with mesh and netting all over the exterior. And if you have a look at the beams, the steel beams, they look like they've seen better days. And again, a lot of work's needed to put this building back to any reasonable shape. Now, if we look along the building, you can see it hasn't really been used in about 3 decades or more. And the security gate on the right there has been left rusted open for a long time. The building has a depressing aura of dank and decay, an aura of a building dying on its foundations. Now, this building is in pretty much dire repair, and it really needs to be saved and turned into something useful, but I've got a feeling that it's going to be a storage unit eventually, or it's going to be turned into some kind of flats that overlook the market in Cambridge. But you know, something needs to be done with it. The ideal opportunity would be for someone like ARM to buy it as a heritage piece and then to run it as a development center, or a center where people who are interested in computers and video and everything that we are lacking now as far as space is concerned, to come and do that. And ARM certainly have the funds to be able to run something like that, or to buy the building outright and let somebody else do it. But you know, it's something that is a possibility. And one of my other videos was about recreating the BBC Micro in a modern form using an old case and keyboard, a Raspberry Pi and a USB converter, which is again by Timemouth software. And you know, I've used their equipment in the past and it's always been very good, and I thought, well, I've got a BBC case and keyboard, so let's just finish off with the emulated series with a BBC Micro, and that's where I've come from on this. So again, here's a quick snippet out of it. Okay, so welcome to Retech, and today we're going to build a replica of a BBC Micro. It's the machine you see here, and it's just a quick how-to really, how I put it together and the reasons as to why, and that's really it. So basically, let's dive straight into it and see how I put this machine together. So if you want to see more, have a look at the full video. Now, I got a few comments about, you know, you shouldn't really be destroying a BBC Micro, but in my video I actually said that this was a completely trashed machine. The keyboard was a spare and the case was a spare. The rest of the machine I've got motherboards out of, which I'm going to repair at some point and take the innards out that I've just converted and put the original ones back. But that's a bit of a long-term project, so nothing's going to be destroyed and everything's reversible. Now, I did a few videos on the Sharp MZ700, and in between making those videos, the machine blew up, and one of those videos is about how it was repaired and what was the problem with the machine. And I ended up having to make a few videos about the MZ because it was getting quite long about everything that I wanted to cover. And the MZ was a good little machine. It wasn't particularly good in terms of graphics and sound, although it was kind of in the sound stakes better than the Sinclair Spectrum, but it didn't have the high resolution videos, which kind of hobbled it in the burgeoning games and home market at the time. It was kind of more of a business machine of the day. Now, it wasn't a bad machine, and as you can see through the video, if you watch the the long version or the full version, you can see that I actually enjoyed using this machine. I enjoyed it quite a lot, which was nice after it being in hibernation for about a year. You can have the same issues with cameras and video cameras and synthesizers and anything that's kind of approaching 30, 40 and 50 years old. I was going to do another 40-year-old video basically on all the machines that are approaching their 40th birthday, and the Sharp MZ is one of them because it was released in Japan in 1982, so it's approaching its 40th birthday. That was the intention, but I kind of turned the machine on and I was letting it settle down, ready to install a game or to install a bit of software and to demo the machine again and show everybody what it was really like. And we got a lot of smoke coming out from its power supply area, so we're going to have a look at that and find out what's causing the problem. Luckily the machine was actually still running. One of the ones I actually forgot about happened in 1982, which kind of jogged my memory watching the Steve Jobs documentary style movie, was it kept going on about Time magazine, and I kind of put two and two together very quickly about 1982. Yep, Time magazine's Man of the Year was actually a computer, and I've done a little bit of a video on that because it deserves something in its own right. And basically Steve Jobs, according to the movie, was jealous that, or angry rather, that he wasn't on the cover, and neither was his Apple computers and so on, but it was never about a single brand. So yeah, have a look at that video and you'll see that Time magazine's Man of the Year 1982 was a generic computer. So take a look at that and make of it what you will. One I enjoyed doing very much was the Babylon 5 and the Amiga story and the NASA links. And again, throughout the early 90s there was always these rumors of the Amiga being used in NASA, and you know it was, but the early 90s internet wasn't where it is now, and it was quite difficult to kind of corroborate things back in there. So a lot of hearsay, which was true, couldn't be corroborated at the time. So with the passage of time and, you know, more information on the internet, we've been able to corroborate those facts. And also Babylon 5, again, rumors abound that in the Amiga community that the Amigas were used for Babylon 5, and you know, throughout time we've been able to turn those into straight facts. And again, the Amiga community was correct. I mean, we kind of knew it was because of the way the look and feel of the graphics were at the time. They were definitely Amiga, but it was nice to do a little piece on it, and it also gained my interest in Babylon 5. Again, it's a serial I haven't kind of watched for a long time. I collected all of the box sets. I watched it live, so to speak, when it was streamed on terrestrial TV, and you know, it was one of those series that you were either into because it had a 5-year story arc where things at the start of the series kind of made sense towards the middle and the end of the series, and you know, a lot of people, they were kind of used to the Star Trek driven formula where things were wrapped up within 1 and occasionally 2 episodes. But this was a 5-year arc, which kind of intrigued a lot of people, and I'm kind of guessing that if they just ran the standalone episodes on their own, which kind of wrapped up within each episode, it may have gained more traction in places like the USA and other parts of the world. But because I think people in Europe and the UK are kind of used to long arcing stories, it was very popular, and it was very popular in those territories. So yeah, I think it was worth, you know, looking at. That's my roundup of what happened in the last month of retro computing. There are a few upcoming events. One of them's an anime event, which Sounds a bit odd, but they do have links to retro computing because they have a games section and a retro games competitions there as well, and that's being held in August in London in the UK. So if you look for AnimeCon, you'll probably be able to find them. I know there's a couple before then, but that's one of the ones that I will be going to, and it's one of the bigger ones, and it's worth a go. It's worth a look at if you're interested in retro games and maybe anime as well. And there's also a few of the computer museums, such as the Cambridge Computing History Museum, which are now coming back online, a bit more mainstream, with a little bit more content for people to go and visit, such as talks and games nights and retro shows and so on. So again, that's a good one to kind of have a look at if you're in the area. But there's also one that's never really gone away. It was the Leicester Computer Museum, the Retro Computer Museum in Leicester. So if you're up that way, then pay them a visit. And there's also a few other museums, not just in the UK but around the world, as well as other places in the USA, in France, in Germany, Italy, in Belgium. There's a museum that opened in Eindhoven, or near Eindhoven, that almost had to shut its doors because of the COVID almost as soon as it opened. And you know, again, all of these museums, do a search, do your local area museum, do some museums and retro kind of forums and retro meets and retro meetups near you, and start supporting them. Otherwise these kind of things are going to disappear from, you know, people's psyche, and they're just going to end up in the hands of serial collectors. And because of that, we're going to not have the community that we have now. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed these brief clips of the videos that we've done in the last month. There's been a lot. Have a look at the full versions of the ones that kind of intrigue you, and I hope to see you soon. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.